You are a young, wealthy, naive and curious young man, and one day you run into an old lady who can tell your fortunes in life by reading your hands. It's the subject of this colorful painting from around 1630 by the French artist Georges de Latour. Standing in between four ladies, the young man holds up his hand to the old lady on the right. He has just given her a coin to pay for her services, which is to study the lines, shapes and mounds of his hand to provide insights into his personality traits, emotions, health and potential life events. As contemporary sources about hand reading have described, the coin was also part of the hand reading ritual, as the woman would use it to cross his hand at the beginning of her efforts. But in the meanwhile, the other ladies rob the man of all his valuable possessions. The woman on the left is stealing his purse with coins from his pocket. The lady with the black hair has already stretched out her hand to receive the stolen purse. In the meanwhile, the pale lady is cutting off a decorative gold medal that the boy is wearing on the chain around his neck. Another way to look at this painting is to see it as a symphony of hands and eyes. We see 8 different hands all doing something and making gestures, and the position of the eyes tells its own story. When just looking at the bodies, the painting can be perceived as quite static, but the hands and eyes breathe life into this painting, making it a dynamic scene that we can imagine happening. This is actually not a very typical work by Georges de Latour, at least from what we know about him. He is best known for the candlelit scenes you can see here, showing, for example, Mary Magdalene reflecting on her sinful behaviors. But we are still learning new things about de Latour these days. A century ago, only 2 works from his hands were known. Today, that number has risen to almost 50. The reason is that de Latour worked in a small town in the northeast of France and so didn't have the same exposure as artists working in Paris or Rome, whose works may have been bought by wealthy patrons who would document their possessions. Despite the fame for his candlelit paintings, he did paint a couple of other daylight scenes, including the cheat with the ace of clubs we see here. The theme of the fortune teller became somewhat popular in the 17th century, particularly because of this version from 1594 by Caravaggio. Many artists followed the style and themes of Caravaggio, and Georges de Latour was by no means the first to capture this. However, it is not clear whether he came up with this idea independently from the earlier works, or whether he had seen some paintings or prints on this theme from earlier artists. The theme was attractive in that it portrayed the stereotypes that these fortune tellers and their environment were a bunch of scammers and crooks. The darker skin of the older lady suggests that she is from the Roma people, an itinerant group of people. As they traveled from place to place, they did not have the traditional types of jobs, and they were seen by locals with a certain amount of suspicion. In the past, these people were also called gypsies, though that is not an accurate term as it refers to various different nomadic groups, even though some paintings with this theme still carry the word gypsy in the title. Notice that the 2 ladies on the left may also be classified as Roma people, but the pale-skinned lady does not seem to fit in, although there were some lighter-skinned members among them, and they were often seen as particularly beautiful by the people in Western Europe, as their skin color was closer to their beauty ideals. The history of this painting is pretty intriguing, and while I tell this story, let me show you some of the other works by de Latour. Before 1960, almost no one had seen the fortune teller painting, but then it suddenly appeared on the market in the United States, and it was bought for an unknown but very high sum of money by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Somehow the painting had been smuggled out of France, and for a long time it was unclear how a license to export the painting was obtained. It caused a scandal in France that such a masterpiece, part of their national heritage, did not end up in the Louvre, despite the persistent story that the museum had had the opportunity in the past to acquire the work. The true story of the history of this work is shrouded in mystery, but the most likely story is as follows. In 1942, during World War II, a French captive obtained a book about the life and works of Georges de la Tour. One of the reproductions in that book reminded him of a painting that hung in the castle of his uncle, and it was The Fortune Teller. At the end of the war, the man consulted an art expert who attributed the painting to Georges de la Tour, a pretty significant discovery, and the expert contacted the Louvre. Negotiations for a sale were started, but somehow the famous art dealer George Wildenstein outbid the Louvre, buying the work for 7.5 million francs, which according to my math is some 20 million US dollars today. Wildenstein kept the painting for himself over the next 10 years, and it was seen by very few people. And then, somehow the painting ended up in the United States in 1960, where the Metropolitan Museum of Art acquired it. It was later discovered that the art historian Germain Bazin, the head of old master paintings at the Louvre, had signed the export license, and he said that he did that as he had doubts about the authenticity of the work. Since then, the majority of experts does safely attribute this as an original work by de la Tour, though there are still some that doubt this attribution. If you are wondering what the inscription on the top right says, it's G de la Tour fecit Lunea Lothar, which means that Georges de la Tour made this in Lunéville in the Lorraine, the town in the northeast of France where the artist lived. It also provided the inspiration for this painting, as he would have seen the itinerant people during the years that he painted them, as there was war and these itinerant people would visit the soldiers to offer their services. While the activity of palm reading seems fairly innocuous, it was actually forbidden during the time that de la Tour painted this, both for the Roma people to perform this activity and for the young man who solicits their advice. One last fun fact is that the traveling groups that the artist would have seen had a tradition that when someone was married, she would have to tuck her hair under a bonnet, while girls and unmarried women would wear their hair loose, like the girl on the left. But people who would wear a scarf tied under their chin, like the pale lady, were neither married nor a virgin. And so it suggests that she is perhaps working in one of the oldest professions in the world. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for many more art videos. Thanks for watching.